Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting live from our Sanctum Sanctorum in Venice, California. This is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our producer, Michael. And today is the first episode of our new segment, Spell It Out, Magic, Reflections, and Shadows. Our topic today is going to center around the Delphic Oracle's precept, Know Thyself. But first, Michael has a few announcements.
Hi, everybody, and thanks so much for you guys for supporting our show. We're up to about 550 subscribers. I think we picked up 72 in the last 28 days. So keep it up, and tell your friends about us, and it's really exciting for us to get new subscribers, and we absolutely love doing the show, and so, we look to be doing this for many years to come, but it's still great to get the positive feedback, and we're happy you guys are enjoying it. We have a couple of great shows coming up in February. The first Tuesday, the 4th, we have our good friend Holly Lindblom back, and she's going to be doing the topic Love After Death. We're going to look at some of her favorite ghost stories that involve romance for the Valentine's season. The following Tuesday on the 10th, our friend Zalima will be joining us, and we will be talking about love spells. And so we're going to look at what constitutes a love spell, how they work. We're going to look at some of the ethics around it, some of our favorites, and discuss what happens when they go horribly, tragically wrong. As Krista pointed out, we were talking earlier, like the movie Practical Magic is a good example of that. So join us for that one. And then we're going to round out our guests for the month of February with Merle Yost, our good friend, the therapist, who will be back, and we're excited to have him. It's always a lot of fun, and he's a terrific guy. And then the last, of course, Spell It Out at the end of the month, our second segment with Krista. This is a really good new segment that we have. And Krista has a topic, but if you have any questions, just let us know in the chat, and I'll be happy to ask them to her. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it. It's a little bit free form, and curious to see where it all goes. So this is one of those things we could start in one direction and end up entirely different by the time we're done. So we'll see. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So please get all the information about the show on our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SIXTH, spelled out, sixthsensesociety.com. You can donate there a little bit if you'd like to support our show, which is always nice to help us cover our cost. But if not, subscribe, and we just love to have you guys comment and live chat and all that good stuff too. So I'm going to kick it back to Krista, and let's hear about the Delphi Oracle. Go ahead, Krista.
Thank you, Michael. So I don't remember when I first came across the Delphic Oracle maxims. There were evidently 147, and one of the most famous ones, Know Thyself, which I believe even Socrates and some of the other famous Greek philosophers have embraced, was inscribed in the forecourt of the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, according to the Greek writer Pausanias. I hope I pronounced that right. So I've embraced that concept fully for many, many, many years, and even before I came across that precept, since I'm also following a lineage of the oracles by being a tarot reader. And we might even do a show someday on the Delphic Oracle, because people probably don't realize how much, when it was at its height, the Delphic Oracle was, of course, more than one woman who was trained. But they, at the height of the oracle's existence, they shaped the Greek civilization in ways not just connected to prophecy, but also morality. So they're very, very powerful figures, and then it sort of degenerated over time. So that's where I got the maxim. I really embrace it. I also was told by Steve Forrest when I think I was 20, when I went to see him for my first astrological reading, which was a look at my natal chart. And because of my fourth house emphasis with my sun, my moon, and Venus in the fourth house, he thought I was here to psychoanalyze myself. And he immediately encouraged me to keep a journal and always talk out things. And I had already been doing the journal a little bit, inspired by my brother David, and I think my own sort of instinct. So that we're going to talk a little bit about on this show, maybe the importance of knowing yourself, how it can help you, how it hurts you. And also, I'm going to kind of go through quickly anyway, some of the methods I've discovered and how to continue to know myself and look at myself honestly so that you can have some tools to work with. So one of the main things that as a reader through the years, I'm sure Michael would agree with me, is that people come to us a lot and ask questions about relationship. And I think here's one reason why it's really good to really know who you are. And by knowing who you are, I'm not really getting to the sort of Buddhist idea of the true self, though certainly that can lead to something sort of bigger philosophically, but really being honest with the kind of person you are, your interests, your dreams, your aspirations, your persona. And as that develops, of course, you will develop the deeper self. And I think that's something that we develop over a long period of time. In fact, Dion Fortune talks about that the higher self needs to have a certain kind of persona to do its work. So that's why perhaps some spiritual people are more, I guess, capable of uniting the two, because I think sometimes we dismiss the importance of character and personality in our work. It's not a small matter, and it's really does take more than a couple of years to develop, and it has different stages, if you ask me. So one of the things about knowing myself, if I know myself well, even as a young person, I will know what kinds of relationships I really am looking for, including if I don't want to be monogamous. All these things really matter because it causes all these ripple effects. So that's just something we notice because a lot of people come to us for readings, and if they're not, you can sometimes tell with the Kabbalah that they're not truly connected to who they really are. And that is already causing them problems with picking people or being in relationships where they can't be themselves. And that, of course, is everyone talks about, oh, be yourself. And yes, be yourself, but first you have to know yourself to be yourself. So that's why I thought that was really important, this topic. Now, for myself, I have had different ways in which I have not only gotten to know myself, but also to explore different dimensions of myself and hopefully evolve, because to me, the self is an evolving self and it's not static. You don't just arrive somewhere and, hey, oh, great, this is me and that's who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. That's probably one reason why it can seem a little daunting, because there is not really a specific end game. Having said that, however, there are sort of core characteristics I think you'll start to embrace and value, and that will maintain themselves throughout your life because they're so strong in your personality. So one of mine, for example, is I really believe in being honest with myself and with other people. Now, that doesn't mean I go around telling people exactly what I think about them all the time, but that that's one of my values, is to be truthful. And everyone has different core values. So I wanted to run through just a few of the ways I have learned to know myself. And probably those of you that watched or listened to the Cosmic Weather know that I love astrology, and I'm a sort of amateur astrologist for fun. And I mentioned that Stephen Forrest gave me my first natal chart reading. I also had natal chart readings done by other people. So the natal chart in astrology, whether you go through the Vedic or the Western traditions, can really help you understand initially how you're wired together. And now what you do with all of that can be very unique. So there's no, sort of saying like, okay, here's my natal chart. That means I'm going to be exactly like this, but it's going to give you some of your tendencies and some of your needs and some of the things that will help you to grow. Some of the things may become too easy for you. And initially, it might be a good idea to go see an astrologer, but make sure it's one with a really good reputation that's not fatalistic and thinks in black and white. I was very fortunate to have someone from the very beginning that has a very organic way of looking at the natal chart and really help you understand the blueprint of who you are, and then you go from there and work with it. And I still think it was one of my best natal chart readings, though it was done years ago. So a lot of people know about their sun sign, but the trinity of sort of initially looking at things in your chart would be your moon, your sun, and your ascendant. But having said that, there can be other planets even from a very beginning level that can affect things because of their position. That's why it's probably good to either go to someone that knows astrology first, and from there, you can watch it yourself. However, if you really would like to learn to look at yourself, I'm going to highly recommend a couple books at the end of the show that will start you off with just your own analysis. And these days, of course, you don't have to do the chart by hand, calculate it by hand. I always go to astro.com because you can get, your free charts as far as just the chart itself there. You can calculate it with your birthday and your month, and it's really wonderful. So that's one way. You can also use other forms of divination to add to that. And most people that once they get into one form of divination, they want to do it all. And I was no different. I started out when I was learning about metaphysics. My first books were numerology. And of course, I wanted to know who I was. So numerology can help you understand yourself. That one is probably at least easier in terms of calculating. It can be a little tricky to integrate it like anything else, but I certainly got some good insights doing the work myself. Then you can also go to palmistry, which is a great complement to astrology. What I like about palmistry, it can really sort of show your character, sort of similar to astrology that way. But unlike the other forms of divination, the lines on your hands can change. And so you can really see if you're growing and changing for better or for worse. And that is one of its real assets with palmistry. So that's another way to really learn and understand yourself. You can learn the basics of palmistry on your own. I was completely self-taught. There's excellent books out there, and I'll recommend that on another show, probably even do one on palmistry. But make sure you take pictures. That's one of the most important things. Take some pictures every year of your hand because there can be little lines or things that come up that you may not have noticed. And nowadays, the cell phones work great. They're just amazing. You can take really clear, detailed pictures. And you can, have some fun with your friends with the palmistry and get a book and sort of look at each other's hands and go from there. And that will give you some insight as to what kind of emotional nature you have. Are you one that wears your heart on your sleeve? Are you a thinker over a feeler? Do you have a strong physical line so that you really are connected to being here? All these things can help you understand sort of your priorities in life and who you are. I think as part of really knowing yourself, I do believe a certain amount of solitude is necessary. And you don't have to go off into the mountains and retreat all the time. But even if you take, 10 or 15 minutes every day to check in and kind of hang with yourself, whether you do a formal meditation practice or not, I would say it's important. And one way I feel you can really start to get to the point where not only you know yourself, but accept yourself is you can't wait for that period of solitude. And I don't agree that if you're taking pictures of your solitude, that is solitude. So there's this sort of tendency to document everything now in the world, which is a little bit overwhelming to me. So I really mean practice of solitude, where you do something where you don't have to tell everyone about it, or certainly you can mention to your mate or partner or roommate, hey, I'm just going out, to hang with myself, so they know where you are. But I think that our society really desperately needs solitude, because even if you know yourself well, if you don't take the time to connect with yourself, you can be swept into other people's ideas and other people's desires. And eventually you'll know, because you'll just feel that disconnect and you'll feel strange. You won't feel like yourself. So that's another, I got off the topic a little bit with the tools, but I would say solitude could be considered a tool as to maintaining who you are. And in fact, one of the tools I used, or two of the tools that require solitude, one is basic meditation practice. Now, basic meditation practice, you can do that with groups as well, and it is effective. But when you're all meditating together and you're all quiet together, you can still have that experience of solitude. And that way you have some support in sticking to your guns with sitting there. But I think it's also important to have your own daily practice that you do on a regular basis. And I would encourage a simple meditation practice, whether it is the shamatha meditation practice that, by the way, Lama Kathy Wesley has a great audio of it on Santa Monica KTC Center's website. So if you go to the Santa Monica KTC Center's website, they have all these different audios of her teachings. And, we've had her on the show and I was listening to it. It's great. It explains it. It's a very simple technique. And that's what I learned. And there are, of course, other very simple ones where you're just watching your breath, which is part of what the shamatha meditation includes. So that you learn to sit with yourself and get more comfortable with yourself and really see who you are. And then the other one that I mentioned earlier was keeping a journal. And journaling is definitely different from diaries and blogging. In fact, there are some people that keep journals that they burn because they want to feel free to say exactly what they want without worrying if someone's going to accidentally find their journal. My view on that is if you spy on my journals and you see something you don't like about yourself, you deserve it. So, because that is meant to be my safe place in which I can express what I want. And when I look back, I've kept journals all my life. I have about 72 journals, some of which I can barely read the writing depending on what period I'm in. And when I look back and I can see the evolution of myself really clearly. And I was really impressed by this period of time where I was so honest. Some of it was really shocking even to me. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote that. But it was helpful. I needed to get it out. I felt safe to say whatever I needed to say. And again, it probably wouldn't be too shocking to most people, but for me now it seemed a little shocking. So I think journal writing is really, really great. I think it can lead to you opening up portals in yourself of consciousness and awareness just by sitting down and writing without any direction. I really actually enjoy the process myself. And for me, I would say doing it if you can, unless you have a true handicap and you can't write, I would do it writing and not typing because there's the physical aspect of writing. They've even shown that kids that take notes with their hands, they remember things better. There's something that happens when you actually write on paper or in a book. And of course, the journal business is really flourishing and you can get all kinds of journals. But I often get really inexpensive ones. I get either expensive ones or inexpensive. So I have a whole bunch of different kinds of journals depending on my mood. So I think that journal writing is another really great way to go. And I really encourage it. And you don't ever need to feel you have to show it to anyone or publish it. Another thing I really like and that has helped me is working with the animal totems. And so when I came across the medicine cards, I have them here in front of me actually by Jamie Sams and David Carson. I came across them in the 90s and I used to pick a card a day. And then I took her suggestion and did the 7. You pick 7 cards and 2 you pick on your own. So there's a total of 9 animal totems. And I really found it very effective in really embracing parts of myself that I thought maybe were negative, and instead of seeing the positive side of it. And I felt it was really accurate. And I think we're complex. So I do think we have more than 2 totems because human beings, like I said, are layered and we need that complexity. So I really enjoy working with the animal totems. It seems like other people really enjoy doing it. So that's another way of really getting to know yourself. And finally, the last part that I wanted to mention in terms of a method of knowing yourself is following your questions in life. And I put out on the table the Fool card here. I'll show you. Here's the Fool from Aleister Crowley's deck. And one of the things about the Fool that I love is the Fool does not know what he or she is getting into. So how can I know if I've never had that experience? And so our questions lead us to explore things that maybe we wouldn't have in the past. So it's in a way it's connected to me to the Fool and to curiosity, which to me is a good word sometimes for the Fool, is curiosity and following that to see where it's going to head without really knowing what you're getting into. Unfortunately, many people are sort of damaged around asking any kinds of questions because of school. And they feel their questions are insignificant or wrong or not interesting. And it is a huge part of spiritual evolution, our questions. And even if you think of the word quest and questing after something. So rather than looking for answers, you follow your questions and you discover, because we all have questions that are unique to us, that we want to ask, that are important for us to understand, and they lead us forward in ways you never would have gone forward in to discover who you are. I think I remember reading that Einstein had had a dream, some kind of a dream when he was young, with all this light in it, and it's his questions about light that led him forward in his life. So don't be afraid to follow your questions with the idea that as long as they take, and you may not even get any answers, but they will certainly lead you forward. And I had one little quote that I found by Voltaire about that. It's judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. And that is actually even something I'm going to talk about at some point with the tarot, is asking relevant questions and how the cards like that and respond really, really well to that. So those are some of the ways that I have basically explored myself and gotten to know myself. But as I said earlier, it's really a dynamic process, so that there are times where we think we've kind of come to a point where we've sort of outgrown some version of ourself. And then we can go through what some Native Americans call the shaman's death, where your inner false self dissolves to reveal the next stage of the true self. And I think that's another thing that maybe sort of confuses people, is that we can sort of almost like a butterfly, go through these stages where we really metamorphosize into something else. And it really is part of the evolution of the true self. But as I said earlier, there are some character traits and there's some core values that seem to basically anchor us in ourselves that we come to, and that will help us maybe to go through this process without really disintegrating completely, which does not seem like that would be a really healthy thing to do. So that's basically most of what I wanted to talk about today, about knowing yourself and how important it is, because we can't be ourselves if we don't know ourselves. And we also really can't connect well or maybe in an authentic way to the world around us if we can't know ourselves. And there are definitely other aspects that I will explore later as we go through this year about what it means to know ourselves and the different angles in which, for instance, self-acceptance is an aspect of it as well. But before we're getting a little closer to the end of the show, I did want to recommend, as part of the show, I plan on recommending books that I feel have really helped me and also are related to the topic just because I love them. This is not a sponsorship of any kind. So the first book, I'm going to go back to the beginning where I talked about astrology. And about a year ago, I decided, even though I really know my natal chart, I decided to go through the workbook, Astrology for Yourself, How to Understand and Interpret Your Own Birth Chart by Demetra George and Douglas Block. It's an excellent workbook. It's quite arduous. You will also get to look at asteroids and things, but you can also stop at different points and you basically will get to know yourself by kind of working through the workbook. And the other book I would recommend for people wanting to learn their own natal chart is The Inner Sky, How to Make Wiser Choices for a More Fulfilling Life by Stephen Forrest. And again, even though it's a basic book, you can go in it. It's the way he has works with the sun signs and moon and how he looks at the chart is quite unique. And I found I had some new insights from his book, which I only recently read. So I really recommend those two books if you're interested in really diving in and getting to know your own natal chart. And the other thing that's nice about the natal chart is because of progressions and transits, it naturally has a leaning towards evolving so that it's not a static system either, though some people I think use it that way. So those are the two books I would like to recommend today. And I'd also like to remind you folks out there that Michael and I are both longtime readers. We've been reading for definitely over 20 years, done probably 40 to 50,000 readings together of complete strangers. And we use, of course, Kabbalah with our tarot. And if you would like to find out how we read and want to get a reading, then you can book us on our website, www.mysticraven.net. That's mysticraven.net. And it has a little bit about ourselves, and you can book yourself if you want, or you can also, there's some ways to contact us through the website you'll see. And we'll be happy to do a reading for you. And I also do palmistry myself, but I only do that in person because I feel it's important to see the hand and feel the hand. So you'd have to come to my place of residence to do that, but you can also book the palmistry on our website. And so the last thing I wanted to kind of quickly mention is throughout this year, I'm probably going to dig into one of my favorite books by Jane Roberts, and that is The Nature of Personal Reality. And part of knowing yourself, I believe, is also kind of trusting that you know yourself. And she has a really nice quote that I wanted to read from that book. She says, "You must begin to trust yourself sometime. I suggest you do it now. If you do not, then you will forever be looking to others to prove your own merit to you, and you will never be satisfied. You will always be asking others what to do, and at the same time resenting those from whom you seek such aid. It will seem to you that their experience is legitimate and yours counterfeit. You will feel shortchanged." So that's another area we can explore at a later date, is how to trust your own experience of yourself. And that is a huge, important thing, because I can know myself, but not feel I can express it or trust it on some level. And we'll get into what that's about and how you can work with that on another show, because throughout the year, I think I'm going to touch on this topic in different angles and different ways. Is kind of the core of some of what I'm exploring this year. At least that is my plan at this point. So I think that other than that, I think I pretty much have said what I needed to say about knowing yourself, and we're going to talk later on about being yourself and self-acceptance. And if you have any questions or comments you want to make even after the show, please make sure that you make them. I'm also going to talk about, once you know who you are, how you can use that to develop your true sense of purpose in your life. And for that later expression of a show, I'm going to talk about the Empress card. Here I brought the beautiful Empress card from Aleister Crowley's deck. By the way, she's almost always beautiful in decks. She is connected to the planet Venus, according to at least the occult decks. And she is connected to our true desires, or any desire you want to, any seed of something that you desire. So she's a really important aspect of expressing who we are and knowing ourselves, even on a deeper level, in terms of how we're going to use what we know about ourselves to express our talents and to find a path in our life, whether it's a path to relationship, to work, to purpose, that will be a genuine expression of ourselves, and that will allow, as I said earlier, the higher self that Deanne Fortune talks about and Edgar Cayce talks about, to integrate into the personality, and we can truly become a very unique individual, which I think that's one way I can sort of judge, to me, a spiritual teacher, is that they have a uniqueness about them, that they are not like any other teacher in terms of their personality or the way they present the material. That is one way of showing more of that integration process. So I think many of you could relate to that and understand that from your own experiences if you really think about it. We like to be around people that are being themselves, so that's just how it is. So anyway, thank you for listening in to our first episode of Spell It Out. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next month. We'll continue this segment, and I hope you all have a great week. Until then, just take good care of yourself and spend some time with yourself, and we will continue exploring the esoteric and the obscure together on our next show.